Welcome back to the Week 4 Rusty Pipes Fantasy Football Predictions. I'm your host, Michael Moore, and we'll get right into it. First up in Week 4 predictions, we have Suck My Wake versus El Cabo. Cobb is cruising right now, sitting at 3-0, and looks to make it 4-0 after this week. But it won't be an easy matchup, as Richie is still 2-1, even without a true running back 2 in the lineup. Cobb will have Eckler back in the lineup, coming off that injury that he dealt with in the last 2 weeks, which will definitely be a boost for his potential scoring. And almost to rub it in Richie's face, as of the moment, he has elected to sit Jerome Ford on his bench, even though Richie had lost the bidding war for Nick Chubb's backup after he went down. For Richie, he couldn't have asked for better matchups for his receivers. He's getting Jay Jettas going against Carolina in that really bad secondary, which puts Thielen against Minnesota, who is also in Richie's flex and is primed for another good day, especially if Andy Dalton is still the signal caller. With Kirk Cousins and Jefferson balling out this year, I expect another huge performance from both of them to help carry his team. We'll see if that is enough to overcome El Cabo. X factors for this week. For Cobb, I have Dak Prescott taking on New England. Tough defense, especially on that quarterback. Bill Belichick always knows how to kind of subdue, even with those star QBs. He's kind of held Pat Mahomes down before. And Patriots, albeit 1-2, are still playing fabulous defense, and we'll see how Dak, coming off a tough loss to Arizona, bounces back. For Richie, I have Kenneth Walker playing against New York Giants, as Walker will... Oh, okay, sorry. Misinterpreted what I had written down. Kenneth Walker will have to pick up Zeke, Slack, and Richie's lineup, but he luckily has a good matchup with New York, who's struggling defensively this year. For the final score, though, I have Cobb winning 132-115. Next up, we have Live Left Facebook, owned by Carson, taking on Schultz. As I said in the power rankings, Carson is on fire, and it will be tough to knock him off. His wide receivers look poised for big games, as both Adams and Diggs enter shootouts in divisional matchups, with Adams taking on the Los Angeles Chargers and Diggs taking on the Miami Dolphins. But his running backs face the opposite, as they face top run defenses. For the other side of this affair, Schultz has some tougher matchups all around, as Zay Flowers takes on Cleveland, who's got probably one of the best defenses in the league this year, both against run and pass. And Etienne takes on Atlanta, another pretty good defense, especially against the run. I know Detroit kind of had a good run game going a little bit with Jahmyr Gibbs, but definitely not an outstanding performance. And Etienne kind of struggled last week against the Texans. Jaguars all around did, so we'll see how they do against Atlanta. X factors for this week. For Carson and I, Brian Robinson, recently acquired in a trade with Michael, where he sent Josh Jacobs away. Robinson will be taking on Philadelphia, another really good defense. We'll see how he performs there. For Schultz, I have Zay Flowers, who was going against possibly the best defense in the league, as I said, and we'll see. Although he is the number one receiver, albeit Mark Andrews in that Ravens offense, and we'll see if Lamar can keep feeding them the rock. Final score, I have Carson winning a close one, 128-125. Possibly the shortest prediction breakdown of the video. We have Parlay Melee versus Shazimler's List. Parlay Melee looks to get back in his winning ways after a tough loss to Carson last week. And Mike is just trying to get through this season at this point. He already knows it's just downhill from, I don't know how much more downhill he can get, but he might be able to find it. Reach looks for a bounce back week from Ridley and Andrews to find his groove. And, it's a good week for them to kind of, refine that. Ridley had that good week 1, but he struggled the last 2 weeks, so it's a good week where no growing pains in this lineup. He kind of has an easy win ahead of him. And Andrews just needs to find his groove now that he's back from injury, and Lamar, it's a new offense. So, meanwhile, Mike hopes Sean Payne uses Marvin Mims more to help fill the Mike Williams void in his lineup. X factors for Reach, I have Mark Andrews versus Cleveland. As I said, for Cleveland, tough defense. For Mike, I have Lamar versus Cleveland. Ravens all around. It's just going to be a tough matchup. Final score, Reach wins 123-88. For our next matchup, we have Juicy Bear versus Drone Tree Trimmer. Just like the Broncos versus Bears games this Sunday, it's a battle of winless teams looking for their first win. For Juicy Bear, he needs Higgins and Hurts to find consistency in this lineup. Both of them have been up and down this year. And, hopefully if Joe Burrow comes back and is a little more healthy, Higgins can get more production going. But he has to figure out those drops. Hurts just needs to find that groove they had last year, an MVP season if he hadn't gotten hurt. And Maybe it's Shane Steichen, his old OC, who's now in Indianapolis. Maybe he was the key to unlocking Hurts. We'll see if Nick Sirianni can figure this out. For Jay, he needs his Packers players to step up on Thursday Night Football. I know this was all made before the Thursday Night Football game, so I don't know how much the scores have played out, but he will also hope that Saquon can return. But if he doesn't, he does have Matt Breida as his handcuff on his bench that he can plug in back into his lineup. X factors for UD, I have Aaron Jones going on that Thursday Night Football game against Detroit, and go Lions. For Jay, I have Christian Watson also in that Thursday Night Football game. We'll see if both of them coming back from injuries can find their roles in that. Final score though, Juicy Bear gets his first win of the year, taking down Jay 124 to 117. Next matchup, we have the number one team in the league, Baby Back Gibbs versus Sierra's Cuck. Russ is in a downward spiral this year. I mean, started 1-0, but lately, these last 2 weeks, he has not eclipsed 100 points. And at the moment, I don't think this is the week he rights the ship, as he is going against Smiley. Smiley's 3-0, and it's the team to beat this year so far. He's just an all-around good team, with guys like Keenan Allen, Devontae Smith, and Brandon Ayuk in his wide receiver room. I mean, it's dominant. All those guys could be wide receiver ones for any other team in this league, albeit Richie, who's got Jay Jettas, and maybe even Cobb with Jamar Chase. But they have just been dominant this year. Russ also has some strong receivers too, in the Sun God and Jalen Waddle, but where he struggles is running back. But he hopes that the emergence of Devon Achane and the return of Alvin Kamara can fix that. X factors for this week. For Russ, I have Kamara coming off the suspension. Russ hopes that he can immediately contribute in that offense and help him pick up some points for him. For Smiley, I have Darren Waller against Seattle. The Giants have been struggling this year, but maybe an easier matchup against a defense like Seattle is what Waller needs to find that big game that he needs. Final score, though, I have Smiley winning 142 to 103 as Russ finally breaks 100 again, albeit still a loss. Final matchup of the week, we have Not So Dangerous taking on Josh. After a good old ass whooping from Smiley last week, he gets to face Josh, who is coming off also a huge game, with a 156-point performance. Michael is a solid team, but really no dominant player in that lineup. I mean, he's got guys like Garrett Wilson, who was expected to be that, but with Aaron Rodgers going down and Zach Wilson, it has actually come to a point where Garrett Wilson is now going to be on the bench from an inside report from Michael's team, and he will be taken over, by Tank Dell, wide receiver from the Houston Texans. So if he wants to win this week, he needs everyone to perform and he can't afford any slip-ups. He'll have Ramondre Stevenson in a tough matchup against Dallas, but inside reports say that Josh Jacobs could also come in, although what I'm hearing is that it will actually be for Miles Sanders, who is going against Minnesota, who's got, bad secondary, good run defense, and Sanders is also dealing with a bit of a groin injury right now. But Jacobs is going against LA Chargers, who defensive struggling this year. Josh, meanwhile, has a great wide receiver duo in A.J. Brown and Tyreek Hill. As I say every week, they're deadly, especially when they both hit. X factors for this week, I have Ramondre Stevenson against Dallas for Michael. Stevenson has been fairly good this year thanks to his receiving work, but has been somewhat inefficient on the ground. To make things worse, he's going against a top 3 Dallas defense. For Josh, I have Joe Mixon versus Tennessee. Mixon is slowly getting back to form, but he has a really tough matchup against a top 5 run defense in Tennessee, and we'll see how he can contribute there, especially, albeit how Joe Burrow plays, and if he can get that passing game open to help open up some run lanes for Mixon. I do have a upset this week of Michael winning 127 to 103. That is it for the Week 4 Rusty Pipes predictions. Good luck, everyone, on Sunday.